Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jess, and we're really excited to announce that we're building a luxury eco-lodge inside the national park here on Christmas Island.
As you can imagine, it's been quite the process even getting to this point, but I have a funny feeling that the adventure's really only just begun. I've learned a hell of a lot already, and I'm sure there's a lot of challenges and things like that ahead. So we've decided to share the whole behind the scenes story on our blog. I first came to Christmas Island as a kid, just 7 years old, in 1990. I was growing up sailing around the world with my family on a homemade yacht for 5 years, and I just remembered it as the most amazing place. A tropical paradise filled with birds and incredible snorkeling and crabs. And later on, while studying electrical engineering, I became a bit of an adventurer, leading some world-first expeditions, hauling carts across Arctic islands and things like that. And that led me into, photography and travel. I started doing some work for Australian Geographic. I was Canon's Australian ambassador for about 5 years. It was about then that I met Jess, and together we rebuilt an old wooden sailing boat and sailed it through the Northwest Passage above the top of Canada and Alaska. And while all this was going on, we started Crisp Ray Photography, initially just running photography courses around the country, but which quickly grew into running small group luxury photo tours to all of the most amazing places around the world. Places like Alaska, the Amazon, Iceland, Greenland, Kenya, around Australia. And we were forever having to find new destinations to take our guests to. And I remembered Christmas Island. So in 2013, Jess and I came over here to check it out to see if it was as good as I remembered. And to our delight, it was way better. It's just such an incredible lost world. People call it the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean, and it's easy to see why. There's no natural predators on the island, so things like birds just nest right on the ground and you can walk right up to them. There's incredible snorkeling and diving, really clear, warm water, resident dolphins, and in the right season, even whale sharks and mantas. And of course, the island was originally made famous by David Attenborough's documentaries of the red crab migration, which he listed in the world's top 10 wildlife wonders. There's amazing landscapes, blowholes. We totally fell in love with Christmas Island and started running photography tours there every year since then. After a year or so, I mentioned to the local tourism association and to the national park that it was a shame that no one has any luxury, nature-focused accommodation on the island like our guests are used to in other parts of the world. And they said, "Oh, wow, that's really uncanny timing. We're in the middle of putting together a call for expressions of interest for companies that might like to build an eco-lodge inside the national park here." And I just thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity. So then Jess and I explored the whole island trying to work out where would be the best place to have an amazing little luxury eco-lodge. We flew drones along the coastline, we went to various lookouts and checked out the areas nearby. Some of the park staff came out with us and checking out different sites, through to the coastline in a couple of spots to get an idea of the view, poured over maps and things like that. And eventually we settled on the area just north of Martin Point Lookout on the western side of the island. It just has the most spectacular ocean view, beautiful swell rolling in there. It's in a lovely bit of jungle, so there's lots of crabs and birds overhead, and it's nice and quiet. It's on completely the other side of the island to the settlement. The next step was then to try and work out exactly what we wanted to design and build. We've seen a lot of luxury eco-accommodation around the world, and we've kind of pulled together all the best ideas from all of those and sat down with the managers and learned what they wished they'd done differently and so on. We finally came up with the idea of building 8 of these luxury little eco-chalets, each one nestled in its own private section of jungle, ceiling-to-floor, wall-to-wall glass overlooking the ocean, with ensuite bathrooms. And of course, being inside a national park, there's huge emphasis on making sure we have minimal impact on the environment. So the eco-chalets themselves are actually on a raised platform, so they're pole-mounted. Plants and things and crabs can still move underneath. We're going to be using the very latest in composting toilets, grey water treatment systems, pH-neutral soaps and so on. So when the public call went out for expressions of interest, we submitted our application and held our breath. In May last year, we found out that we were successful and that parks really loved our idea for this eco-lodge. So we then spent the next 6 months going through all the finer details of things like designing a logo and building a website. The next stage, of course, was to have a thorough environmental impact assessment done on the proposal, which involved ecologists going out to the site and doing field surveys for flora and fauna, both day and night, and an independent company in preparing an enormously long 144-page environmental impact assessment report, which had pages of recommendations to make sure we have minimal impact on the environment. Jess and I then came back in December last year to have one final check, during which time we were lucky enough to experience the biggest baby red crab return that the island has ever seen. Chatting to a few people on the island and some tourists about our plans, we were blown away by the support that everyone gave us. There was no shortage of people wanting to work for us or invest in the idea, and that gave us the last bit of confidence we needed, and we decided that, yep, this is something we're going to do. And we've just finished negotiating the final license agreement and land lease from Parks Australia, which means I guess the whole thing's really happening.
Yeah, so after we leave here now, we've got a few tours to run in Iceland, Greenland, Alaska, Kenya, and then in September we officially move here. So we've sold up everything back in Sydney, sold our car, our kayaks, and we're really excited to come here in September and be a part of the community.
Yep, so follow along on the website, swelllodge.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Should be quite the story. So, and maybe one day even come and stay at the lodge.
Oh, sorry, a traffic bird just flew in to feed its chick.